Penguin Random House Audio presents Unstuck, Your Guide to the 7-Stage Journey Out of Depression by James S. Gordon, M.D. Read for you by Fred Sanders. Preface. Depression is not a disease, the endpoint of a pathological process. It is a sign that our lives are out of balance, that we're stuck. It's a wake-up call and the start of a journey that can help us become whole and happy, a journey that can change and transform our lives. This book is the story of that journey and a detailed map of its challenges and rewards. I'll be your guide. I'll show those of you who've been suffering with clinical depression how to move, step by step, through and beyond its dense darkness. And I'll walk with all of you who are simply unhappy, anxious, or confused, and help you to discover ways to help and heal yourself. This journey, which is as old as recorded history, has 7 stages. In Unstuck, I'll give you the tools and the compass you need to successfully navigate each one of them. And I'll share with you the stories of people, the ordinary and yet remarkable, men, women, and children, who've taken this journey with me. Like them, you too can move through and beyond depression and distress, learn from and be healed by your experience, and find fulfillment, even delight. I've been preparing to write this book for more than 40 years, since I myself had an experience of clinical depression that lasted many months. One late winter morning in 1965 in New York, 6 months into a pathology research fellowship, between my second and third years at Harvard Medical School, I awoke in a sweat. The sheets were twisted around my body, and I was clutching the blankets to my chin. My mouth was dry, and my head ached. My chest hurt when I breathed, as if a hand had pushed my sternum up against my spine. I felt feverish, but didn't seem to have an infection. I didn't know if I could heave my body out of bed, but I knew I didn't want to. Several weeks before, my girlfriend and I had broken up. Now the irritable unhappiness of our last months together, the loss of our love, seemed to be breaking open in my body, weighing me down. The doubts and frustrations of my first years in medical school, of long days and dry lectures and tedious labs, rushed back. My mind was filled with anxious, accusatory questions. What had I done wrong? Why hadn't I been able to love better? How could I ever find fulfillment in medicine? What was the matter with me? I told myself to get over it. I was young, privileged, healthy. Perhaps my girlfriend and I would get back together. In any case, there would certainly be other women I could love, wouldn't there? I knew I should be able to sort out my confusion and pain about medical school, to embrace my upcoming years of work with patients, and find a way to become the kind of doctor I wanted to be. I said these things to myself, but none of them seemed to make any difference. I felt worthless and hopeless, ashamed of my weakness, horribly lonely, without strength or will or direction. It felt like the end. It was actually the beginning. In the months that followed, I was wrapped up in and constrained by the damp heaviness of my depression. It looked to my frantic parents and bewildered friends as if my easy, confident forward progress had come to a crushing halt. It felt that way, too. I resigned my fellowship, left New York, moved back to Cambridge, Massachusetts, and began to see a psychiatrist. Before, I'd always been sociable, often laughing. Now I spent many of my days alone, crying for lost opportunities, relentlessly examining and judging my faults, missing my girlfriend. I plodded slowly, head often down, through Cambridge's lovely spring and summer. And yet I felt something new, something very necessary and overdue, was growing in me. When I returned to medical school a half-year later, I was still unsettled in many ways, but I felt different, more solid, as if my center of gravity had begun to drop from my head to my heart. My own suffering and the early days of my own journey of self-discovery had opened me to people who were dealing with situations far worse than mine. On the Beth Israel Hospital surgical ward, I sat with ancient Jewish men and women, some of them Holocaust survivors, as they moaned through late-night pain and early morning loneliness. On my medical rotation, I held a giant, bewildered black man who, believing he had to fly or die, was trying to pry open the windows at Boston City Hospital. While sitting with and caring for these people and many others, and sometimes helping them find strengths they'd forgotten they had, I began to discover my own strength and purpose and meaning. In the 15 years afterward, as a student at Harvard, a psychiatry resident at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and a researcher and clinician at the National Institute of Mental Health, NIMH, I continued to be impressed by the strength and resiliency, as well as the vulnerability, of troubled and suffering people. I respected the people I was helping as full partners in our therapeutic work, and I began to think of them as fellow travelers on a healing journey. I developed programs that actively engaged deeply depressed and psychotic adults and adolescents in their own care, and later, a national program for runaway and homeless youth. During those years and since then, I worked closely with and learned deeply from some of the great physicians and researchers of our time. I've also studied with remarkable traditional healers from India, Tibet, Africa, China, and the Americas, exploring ways of understanding and treating depression that have been used successfully by cultures around the world for thousands of years. With the help and guidance of these men and women, I developed and refined the comprehensive, practical, individualized, non-drug approach to depression that I'll teach you in this book. This Unstuck approach will equip you with the perspectives and attitudes and the mental, emotional, and physical techniques you need to sustain yourself as you make the journey through and beyond depression. It includes simple, effective meditations that can enhance the biology of your brain and body and make it far easier for you to deal with and transform the beliefs and fears that have inhibited and overwhelmed you. Clinically tested experiments with words, images, drawings, movement, yoga, and dance that can help you mobilize your intuition and your body to move surely and often swiftly through each of depression's 7 stages. Detailed, practical plans for using food and supplements, and the ancient powerful methods of Chinese medicine to balance your physical and mental functioning. Ways to make the world's spiritual wisdom and spiritual practices a sustaining part of your healing journey. Strategies for tailoring all of these approaches and techniques to your unique individual situation, to your life. In the years since I left NIMH, I've used this model in my own private practice, with many hundreds of depressed people of every age, class, and race. The results, as you'll see, have been deeply satisfying for my patients and for me, and often quite miraculous. Since 1991, as the founder and director of the Center for Mind-Body Medicine, CMBM, I've brought the approaches and techniques I describe in Unstuck to tens of thousands of troubled and stressed-out people around the world. Together with my CMBM colleagues, I've created groundbreaking programs for health professionals and medical students who are hoping to live lives of greater professional fulfillment and personal satisfaction. We've helped people with cancer and other chronic illnesses, as well as those who are anxious and depressed, to feel far healthier, vastly more optimistic and energetic, far more in control of their lives. And we've made it possible for many thousands of people who've been depressed and traumatized by war and disaster in Kosovo, Israel, and Gaza, and in post-9/11 New York City and post-Katrina New Orleans, to find new hope as well as emotional healing. Now, for the first time, I'm offering this program, this Unstuck approach, to you, in a form you can use on your own at home. This Unstuck program is not a substitute for consultation with a physician or sessions with a skilled psychotherapist. It is a powerful, user-friendly way for you to help and heal yourself.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?